Did somebody say, we have a MLB slate tonight? Somebody cue that music. It's that time again, where full-time DFS pros give you what you need to succeed. It doesn't matter if you're shooting for a GPP takedown or trying to build your bankroll by hitting in cash. We've got you covered. No BS, just DFS. Welcome to On the RotoRadar with your hosts, Brittingham T and Two Minds Bluff.
Welcome to the very first episode of On the RotoRadar, where we give you the info you need to cover your bases every weekday, Monday through Friday. I'm your co-host, Two Minds Bluff.
And Brittingham T here with you. Today we'll be covering a 14-game, very interesting MLB schedule. It's going to be quite tricky to piece it together, but I've got your cash game side. Bluff's going to cover your GPP plays. And with that being said, let's jump right into it. Our very first game is the Arizona Diamondbacks and Robbie Ray at Pittsburgh Pirates versus Ivan Nova. Pittsburgh opens up as a minus 102 favorite in a run total game of 8 runs. Bluff, what are you seeing from this matchup?
It's a tough spot, actually, to really figure out, because you have Robbie Ray, who's been just absolutely dominant his last 3 or 4 starts. He gets a matchup in pitching-friendly Pittsburgh, but he's going to face a team that's going to throw out pretty much all right-hand batters except for Adam Frazier. I don't believe Polanco will be in the lineup today, as he got hurt over the weekend. And the Pirates, they're pesky. They don't strike out much. Well, Robbie Ray can show that elite strikeout upside versus anybody, but I'm not really feeling him today versus an all-right-hand lineup. On the other side, Ivan Nova is kind of interesting for GPPs. He's really cheap on DraftKings. And the Diamondbacks can strike out a lot versus right-hand pitching. For hitters, I'm not really looking at any of the Pirates' bats, even though I don't have any interest in Robbie Ray. Against Nova, I don't have a ton of interest in the Diamondbacks either, as they're pretty high priced on both sides. But I don't mind maybe going with Jake Lamb or Peralta, but I'd mainly stick to the lefties. How about you?
Well, for me, it's pretty simple. I want nothing to do with hitters in this game. I don't like the park. I respect both pitchers. But I am looking at Robbie Ray as a potential SP1 on FanDuel and a very strong SP1/SP2 on DraftKings. Ray opens as the 10th biggest favorite of the slate. It's only minus 102, which goes to show you there's a lot of tough spots today. I don't like targeting against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but Ray is striking out 28.5% of batters. He is holding right-handed bats, which he'll see 9 of, at least 8 or 9 of. He's holding them to a 300 WOBA with 7 home runs allowed in 48 innings. He's 4-3 on the season with a 3.45 ERA. He's got 6 quality starts. But the thing I'm most interested in Ray, and the reason he's gained so much steam in the cash game circles, is he strikes out lots of batters. He strikes out 11.783 hitters per 9 innings, and the Pirates only have the second lowest projected team total at 3.73 runs. So it's one of those things where I don't like targeting Pittsburgh. They've got David Freeze's back. They've got Jordy Mercer will probably hit up either first or second. Josh Harrison, Andrew McCutcheon's been hot or hotter as of late. But here's the interesting thing. At home, Robbie Ray has a 6.75 ERA. Arizona is a hitter's park. On the road this season, he has a 0.81 ERA. So for me, he's in play. He's priced $9,400 on FanDuel, $9,600 on DraftKings. He's the only person I'm looking at, and quite honestly, I'm looking for reasons to not play him, but he is going to be popular in cash games because he allows you to get bigger bats, and he's at that mid-tier price. But there's going to be a couple pitchers in this very exact same price range that we're going to discuss for cash game circles, but Robbie Ray is definitely in play. But that's it for me from this entire game, is just Robbie Ray.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that concerns me with Ray, and I agree, he's probably going to be popular in cash, in GPPs. I mean, you're not getting any discount on him in GPPs anymore. He's priced where he should be. And, I mean, when he's facing all righties, his strikeout numbers versus left hand in the split there is 10% difference. You know, he's 38% against lefties, only 28% against righties. And his xFIP is 4.2 versus righties versus like 1.88 versus lefties, and I'm concerned that they're going to be able to get him work on his pitch count and run his pitch count up, because this Pirates team can be very patient. So I'm a little nervous about the spot for him.
It's something to monitor, especially when those lineups come out, because if it's eight right-handed bats or even 7 with Adam Frazier, it's not as easy a matchup as it looks or once was when Jordy Mercer and David Freese and Josh Harrison and all those guys weren't at the level they're at now. Moving on, our next game is the New York Yankees with Luis Severino taking on Baltimore Orioles and Chris Tillman. Game's in Baltimore, has a 9 run total with the Yankees favored -125. What is sparking interest in the Yankees at Orioles game?
In this spot, not a ton. I mean, Severino is priced up, and he's priced to the point where I don't have a ton of interest. They've had a short leash on him lately. I mean, you don't mind the matchup versus the right-handed heavy Orioles, as he does have much better numbers versus right-handers, strikes them out much higher clip, and has a better xFIP versus them. But I just don't love his price. And for the bats, I don't really want to attack Severino, even though he does give up some power. So I don't hate going with a Chris Davis or a Manny Machado and hope he just hangs one of those 98-mile-an-hour fastballs right down the middle. As far as the Yankees, Chris Tillman's a guy. Chris, did that? Yeah.
You're back.
All right. Chris Tillman is a guy I don't usually like to attack much. I have no interest in pitching today, but on a 14-game slate, I don't have much interest in grabbing expensive Yankees bats versus him. How about you?
For me, Severino is popping on some of my stuff I look at as far as a pitcher, but at Baltimore, I'm really not that interested. He's got a decent K rate. He's a favorite. But Baltimore is one of these boomer bust matchups always. And at home, I just don't like targeting him in that hitter's park. As far as bats goes, the only person that's come across in any of the builds I've put together has been Brett Gardner against Chris Tillman. And honestly, there's a lot better spots today just for hitting. If you're rostering Gardner, you're just hoping that he gets on base and scores a couple of runs, because, of course, he has home run upside in this matchup, but at 3,700 on FanDuel, and I believe it's 4,500 on DraftKings, that's just a price. There's a lot better hitting spots on this big slate. So for me, it's more of a pass-over game. Severino will show up in cash games, so don't be surprised if you run into him in a couple spots just because he's right around that price. But Robbie Ray is still going to be much more popular than Severino at this price point. On to our next game, we have the Los Angeles Dodgers with Kenta Maeda going up against at St. Louis Cardinals and Michael Wacha. It's an 8.5 total, and the Dodgers are favored by -110. Kenta Maeda versus Michael Wacha. What do you see?
It's a rematch. These two faced each other not in their last starts, and I really have no interest in the pitching again here. Maeda's a pitcher I like a lot, and like the spot for him in the last start, but seeing the same team again back to back, and he just didn't look that sharp in his first start off the DL last time. I'm just going to stay away. Wacha's a guy I like to target with left-hand bats, so I don't mind a lot of the Dodgers lefties, but again, on a 14-game slate, they're not my favorite spot. But Corey Seager continues to just mash the ball, and he's been very unlucky this year. He's going to see some correction in his stats, and you're going to see a lot of homers and big scoring hits from him in the near future. I always love Grandal at catcher, and then Bellinger hit a bomb yesterday. He's maybe heating up a little bit after the pitchers adjust to him some and kind of slowed him down. For the Cardinals, just maybe Matt Carpenter, probably the only one. I don't like to attack Maeda with anything else besides lefties, and the Cardinals only have Fowler, and Carpenter really has lefties, so that's all I got. How about you?
I've got nothing. This is a look-over game for me. It's in St. Louis, which is a park that favors the pitcher. I just have no interest in anyone here. Grandal will pop up at the catcher position in cash games just because of his hitting spot. He's been hitting third. And he's I mean, he's tier 1 pricing, so he's up there, but you'll see him in some cash games. But outside of that, if you want a low-owned cash game play, Cody Bellinger in the outfield will be less than 5% today. He's got home run upside. But for me, none of these Dodgers or Cardinals guys are making their way onto any of my cash game builds personally. Moving on, our next game is the Cincinnati Reds at the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the Reds are pitching. He's making his Major League debut as a starter. His name is Asher Wojciechowski, I believe.
Close enough.
He's going into the Hitters Park in Toronto, facing off against J.A. Happ. The Blue Jays are huge favorites here at minus 178, and the run total is 10. What are you seeing from this matchup?
I don't want any pitching for sure. I was looking up Asher's minor league stuff, and he wasn't terrible. Had some okay strikeout numbers in AAA. He threw 90 his last start in AAA on May 16th, and 90 pitches that is, and he's been limiting damage. I don't think he's going to do well against this Blue Jays lineup, but I'm not really going to go there much for myself with hitters. And with Happ, I just don't like pitching guys against the Reds. They're a pesky team. They're tough to really have a big game against for a pitcher. But I don't have a ton of interest in the hitters. Happ has pretty neutral splits. He's actually sometimes a lot tougher on righties. And so, normally I would kind of be interested in Adam Duvall, but I just don't love the spot here for him. So it's pretty much a pass game for me. How about you?
Well, word is that Happ's going to be on a 75-pitch limit, which takes him completely out of cash game consideration, even if the matchup did pop. But to me, I don't like the matchup. I don't like the spot. I am interested in Toronto bats due to the fact that Wojciechowski has a fly ball rate in his 11.2 innings that he's pitched in the majors as a reliever. His fly ball rate is 54.8% to left-handed bats. And on the Blue Jays, there are two left-handed bats that I love to target any chance I get. Kendrys Morales and Justin Smoke are both going to be hitting 4th and 5th. You add in Josh Donaldson, Troy Tulowitzki, Russell Martin starting to hit better, and this Blue Jays offense is suddenly a lot more difficult to get through hitters 1 through 9, and they're turning the lineup over a bunch more. As evidenced yesterday, they scored 17 runs. I don't expect that, of course, to happen again. But this is a spot where you got a young or inexperienced pitcher going into a hitter's park. I could see lots of damage being put up by the Blue Jays, as evidenced by their 5.16 implied run total. It's a good spot to target bats. The issue is you're going to see lots of Kendrys Morales, lots of Justin Smoke in cash games. The issue is there's better third basemen at the price than Josh Donaldson. There's better outfielders at the price of Jose Bautista. But those are good plays still. So I could see a stack, a 3 or 4 stack of Toronto in cash games, but more than likely you're just going to run into the first baseman. And since you can only play one of them, Smoke is cheaper on DraftKings, and I believe Morales is cheaper on FanDuel. So I expect that's the way that you'll see those in cash games.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, this Blue Jays lineup now that's fully healthy is not the same lineup we were picking on with pitchers earlier in the year. Very potent lineup, very dangerous. I always love Justin Smoke. He's my home run call many days. And yeah, it's a great spot for him. I think still I'll probably stay away for the most part. I wish the Blue Jays would just play Smoke out in right field for a few games, see if Sites can make him outfield eligible. That would be very great for me because it's tough playing him at first base with so many other options usually.
Yeah, nothing tilts me more than I have to pick between Morales or Smoke, and one of them hits a home run and the other one doesn't, even though I wanted to play both of them because the spot's so good. I wish the Sites had a DH spot, but I always lean towards Morales just because he's hitting 4th instead of 5th. And sometimes it works, sometimes it backfires. But tonight, in cash games, you're going to see lots of Morales. So be prepared for that. Moving on, our next game is the Milwaukee Brewers and Zach Davies at the New York Mets, facing off against another pitcher making a debut, Tyler Pill. And interesting enough, Tyler Pill and the New York Mets are minus 112 favorites in a game total of 9. What are you seeing in this spot?
Well, you got Zach Davies, who I'm not a big fan of at all, and love to target with left-hand bats, and he's versus a Mets lineup that's basically almost entirely left-handed, so I don't mind going with the Mets as one of my favorite stacks of the night, even in Met Stadium. And there is some weather issues here, but it looks like it's probably just a delay risk as far as what I'm seeing. So yeah, I like targeting the left-hand Mets. Conforto continues to stay hot. Lucas Duda has been just crushing the ball, and then you have obviously Jay Bruce. And, you have Neil Walker, Jose Reyes, all these left-hand bats are in play. As far as the Brewers, Tyler Pill, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about the guy. Do you know anything about him?
I got nothing. Everything I've read is he's a low strikeout guy. And so a lot of popular momentum is building towards Brewers and cash games. Because if you can't strike them out, the thought is that they're going to be putting up big numbers. But I personally am not getting behind that thought just because I don't want to take on a spot where I don't have full information. So I don't really know what we're going to get out of Tyler Pill. And I just don't know who you attack him with. They've been hitting Keon Broxton leadoff. Eric Thames has been less than stellar lately in a loaded first base position today. I don't want to play Travis Shaw. It's just not a spot that I'm seeing a lot of cash game plays from me personally from the Brewers, but they're popular from what I've been gauging around the industry today.
Yeah, and I just pulled up his game log in the minors here, and yeah, he had a really good start to the year, but lately he has not been looking great. His last start he had 6 1/3 with only 5 hits and 1 run, but before that he had 5 2/3 with 9 hits, 2 walks, gave up 2 homers. And the start before that, he had 7 innings with 6 hits and 3 walks. So it could be a good spot for the Brewers. I mean, it's a park downgrade for them, and I don't even know. It really depends what lineup they put out. They change their lineup quite a bit. But yeah, I don't mind. Keon batting leadoff. I'm always a big Keon fan, especially against guys that can't strike him out. So that'd probably be the favorite for me.
And that's the thing is, I believe the Brewers are a great GPP play today just because of the unknown. For cash games, you're going to get them really low owned. You'll come across them in a few matchups, especially people that want to play Keon Broxton because his price is still very, very fair around the industry for his lineup movement since he's now hitting leadoff. But the cash game plays for me this game are the Mets. I love the Mets in this spot. Zach Davies is allowing a 359 WOBA. He's given up 6 home runs in 28.1 innings on a hard hit rate of 32.1%, a fly ball rate of 37.8%, and he's only striking out 18.3% of left-handed bats. That's a 1.91 home run per 9. So you give me guys like Michael Conforto, Jay Bruce, Lucas Duda hitting 5th. All those guys have home run upside in this matchup. Jose Reyes, Neil Walker are going to be hitting 2nd and cleanup respectively. And those guys in their own right have run scoring and RBI opportunities in this spot. It's just a very, very tough matchup for Davies facing all these left-handed bats. I wish the game was in Milwaukee for the better park, but I can make do with this being in New York. As long as the weather is cooperating, this is a spot where I can see playing a Conforto, especially as sort of a pivot to the Coors game. We'll talk about the Coors, but he's priced right around those guys like Nelson Cruz. We'll get to that spot. But I like the Mets, so it's a good spot, and you're going to run into them in cash games.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, too, the Mets bullpen has been terrible, and they're worn down and beat up. And so if the Brewers get the Pill early and they got to go to that bullpen, it could be a monster game for these Brewers bats.
See, I'm so confused why the Mets are favored in this game. I mean, it's only minus 112, but is that just how bad Davies is, or just the unknown of Pill? It's one of those spots where in cash games it's just hard to trust because you lean heavy on what Vegas says and you want to trust that they know what they're doing. And the run total is only 9. There's a lot of 9s and 3 games with better run totals. So
yeah. I mean, it's
boom or bust.
I'm not a big Vegas guy, and if I had to bet, I'd be taking the Brewers in the over here. But it's a tough spot to really figure out just because there's limited information.
Well, that transitions perfectly to this because this is the game I was just referencing. We're going to Coors. We've got Seattle Mariners and Ariel Miranda taking on the Colorado Rockies and Tyler Anderson, a pair of lefties on the mound. Colorado is a minus 140 favorite, and this is the highest run total of the day at 11 runs combined. Outside of the obvious, what about these Coors bats stands out?
I mean, you gotta love the right-handers versus Miranda, and the Rockies lineup is heavy on the right-handers too. So I mean, you get Nolan Arenado, who's obviously going to be probably one of the most popular plays on the slate, and a great spot. You got Mark Reynolds hitting the ball hard. You got Desmond. Story's looked a lot better lately. I mean, you can't go wrong with going to the right-handers for the Rockies, and obviously I don't mind Blackman even with the lefty-lefty matchup. For the Mariners, I'm a little nervous. I mean, I don't like to really go after Tyler Anderson too much. But, I mean, obviously Nelson Cruz is a well-known lefty masher. I probably will be fading him in tournaments just because I think he's going to be super popular today, and I don't think it's as great of a spot as the field thinks it is for him just because Tyler Anderson's ground ball ability, neutralizes some of that Cruz power. What are you thinking?
Well, here's what the issue I was talking about with Michael Conforto and Nelson Cruz. They're relatively close to the same price. Cruz is, I believe, $500 more expensive on both sides. Cruz is going to be hitting cleanup. He's got a platoon advantage. He's the away team in Coors. And Tyler Anderson is allowing a 385 WOBA with 9 home runs and 41.0 innings on a hard hit rate of 29.7%. So he's getting Anderson's not giving up the hard contact like we want to see. He's a ground ball pitcher traditionally, but he's giving up a fly ball rate of 30%, which isn't anything that jumps off the page. But the 1.98 home runs per 9 to right-hand bats does. If there's one guy for this entire slate that you think could hit a home run or has the highest home run upside, it's Nelson Cruz and Coors because he has a 407 WOBA and a 339 ISO against left-handed pitching. So he is going to be very, very popular.
Yeah, my argument still goes, I mean, if you look the last 30 days, the pitcher on this slate that gives up the least amount of hard contact is Tyler Anderson, and it's not even close. He's looking at a 17% hard contact rate the last 30 days, and the next closest is Jose Quintana at 22. So, I mean, he's been pitching well. He's been limiting the hard contact. And for me, like GPPs where Cruz is going to be super popular, I think I'm willing to take that fade.
And it's all about a price play for me for cash games on how many of these guys you can play. Sticking with the Mariners, a guy that's going to be popular that I think is a trap is Guillermo Heredia. He'll be hitting second for the Mariners, facing off against the left-hander Tyler Anderson. The issue with him is if he doesn't get it done in his first couple of bats, or if they chase Anderson and he doesn't get it done, he gets pitch hit for immediately when they bring in a right-handed bat. They bring in Ben Gamble. So
yeah,
in cash games, it's a trap. Don't play Heredia.
Yeah, especially with no DH today, so they'll have a bigger bench than normal, so they'll be willing to pinch hit right away for him.
Yeah, so the Mariners, I like Cruz a lot. A guy that will go under-owned in cash games just because the position's so loaded is at first base, Danny Valencia. Valencia is a great play, but they've been hitting him sixth, and there's just too many good spots today that I'm not willing to give up my first base spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if you ran into him in a couple of head-to-heads in cash games just because he's cheap and allows you to pay up at other spots. As far as the Rockies go, all the right-handed bats for me are in play. DJ LeMahieu will be hitting second. He is occasionally he'll give you that pop, he'll give you that home run. And the thing about targeting Miranda is Miranda does give up the home run. He gives up a fly ball rate of 51%. That is crazy high for a pitcher in Coors. He gets away with it in Safeco in Seattle, but here in Colorado, that's not going to fly. And especially, I think maybe the overall top play of the entire slate is Nolan Arenado. He'll be hitting third against Miranda. There are two other third basemen that are really, really, really jumping out to me, but Arenado is, if you can afford him, he's the play. He has a 390 WOBA and a 270 ISO against left-handed pitching. He's going to be hitting third in Coors. I mean, it's just a lock and load spot anytime Arenado faces a lefty, and this time it's a fly ball lefty. So,
yeah, I love these righties
outside of
versus
that,
Miranda. So,
yeah, basically any right-handed bat in this game outside of Heredia, I think, is a trap. I think you can play any of them. It's Coors. You're hoping that they get to the bullpens, and even then, it's just if you can afford it, you play these guys. Simple as that. They're going to be very popular in cash games.
Yeah, and I love the right-hand bats from Colorado, and the way my Coors has gone this year, it's probably a favorite that the Rockies get shut out tonight. So keep that in mind, I guess.
And if you want a tiebreaker, the Rockies are favored by 140, so that should tell you something. Our next game is the Philadelphia Phillies and Vince Velasquez traveling to Miami to take on the Marlins and Justin Nicolino. Another interesting line, Justin Nicolino and the Marlins are minus 110 favorites in a game total of 9. I don't trust Vegas on this one. How about you?
This is a game for me. I don't have any interest in anybody in the game. I like Velasquez. He can give up the power, but I don't want to pitch him versus a pesky Marlins team that just isn't a good matchup for him. And I just don't like the park. I don't want any hitters on any pitchers. How about you?
I've got a couple hitter spots from Philadelphia, and this is why I said I don't trust Vegas, because I think the Phillies, as bad as their offense has been, I think they get to Nicolino. They are projected to score, where are they at? They're projected to score 4.41 runs, and I think they go over that total just because I don't believe in Nicolino. I don't think he is a major league pitcher.
He's terrible. He's not a major league pitcher. He shouldn't even be in the pros.
Well, this is his first start in 2017, so there's something to be said about that. But last year in 2016, he allowed a 359 WOBA, gave up 7 home runs in 57.1 innings on a hard hit rate of 36%, a fly ball rate of 34.8%. And here's the kicker. He only struck out 10% of right-handed bats.
Yeah, he doesn't strike anyone out. I think he's had 2 starts this year.
Oh, that's right.
And he's looked. Down. Yeah, he's looked what you'd expect. He's walking guys, giving up hits, giving hard contact. And yeah, I agree. There's this Phillies team can hit lefties. Tommy and Joseph.
Here are my plays. I like Cameron Rupp at the catcher spot. If you're not going to strike out Cameron Rupp, he's got a 470 WOBA and a 372 ISO against left-handed pitching. If you're not going to strike out Rupp, the ballpark's not ideal for home runs in Miami, but Rupp is a swing for the fences guy. I love this spot for him today. And you mentioned Tommy Joseph, another loaded first base play. He'll be hitting cleanup. Joseph's got a 358 WOBA, 328 ISO against left-handed pitching. It's just a good spot for those two guys. Third base, Maikel Franco, he pops off a little bit, but he's off my list because he's been hitting 6th lately. And finally, Aaron Altair should be hitting 3rd. He's got a 358 WOBA and a 221 ISO against left-handed pitching. So I could see coming across those guys in cash games, especially Cameron Rupp, because the catcher position, he's cheap, especially on FanDuel. He's only $2,600. I could see him being very, very popular in this spot today.
Yeah, I do. Actually, yeah, I didn't see that price on FanDuel. I love Rupp. Now that you bring this up, yeah, $2,600 for him in this spot's a great price.
Yeah, and he'll get those guaranteed away team bats. And if that 10% K rate, if you're not striking out a guy that swings for the fences, there's a lot of opportunity there for the guy that swings for the fences. Our next spot, we have the Tampa Rays going with Matt Andriese into Texas to take on the Rangers and Nick Martinez. Another spot that, again, this line confuses me. Texas is a favorite. Nick Martinez is a minus 100 favorite. The run total is 10. Talk to me about this game.
No pitchers for me. We've seen the weather in Texas warming up, and we've seen the runs piling up in these games. As far as, I have a lot of misguided faith that Nick Martinez is going to be a decent pitcher eventually, but I'm not worried about today. My favorite play is Logan Morrison. It's just in a great spot versus him to maybe hit 2 homers today, to be honest. And also, you got to love Joey Gallo. He's just locked in. When he puts the ball in play, it's going far. But pretty much almost everyone from these lineups has been playing for me. I think both teams work as a stack. You had obviously Corey Dickerson continues to crush the ball. Longoria's starting to hit it finally. Nomar Mazzara had a decent game yesterday. He's starting to look what he showed to begin the season, where we thought he might be a potential MVP candidate, and then he slowed way down. And I also always love Odor at second base in a spot where he's usually underpriced. How about you?
I like batters or hitters from both sides of the plate. Want nothing to do with pitching. This is you can play almost anyone's spot for the hitters. Let's start with the Rangers, the team that is favored in this game. Matt Andriese is a reverse splits pitcher, so you want to target the right-handed bats. This season, he's allowing a 383 WOBA, and he's given up 7 home runs in 30.1 innings. The hard hit rate that he has allowed to right-handed bats is 38.8%. Fly ball rate is 32%. That's a 2.08 home run per 9 to right-hand bats. The issue with Texas is most of their higher up in the order bats are left-handed, but they do have Jonathan LaCroix or Robinson Chirinos. If either of them are hitting in the top 6, they make for elite catcher spots. Adrian Beltre is back at third base. He played in his first game yesterday. He'll be hitting cleanup. He's traditionally been a guy that you want to target against lefty or against reverse split righties. He has a 373 WOBA and a 206 ISO against right-handed pitching. And Elvis Andrus has been a very, very popular shortstop in cash games. He's really been hot lately, and the thing you like most about Andrus is he's hitting second. He's in the hitter's park that is Texas. And when he gets on base, he's been stealing bases. So he yesterday stole second and third. The day before that, I believe he stole second. He's a guy that is a very safe cash play. He's still cheap. He's still way too cheap, especially on FanDuel. He's $2,900. I believe on FanDuel or on DraftKings he's $4K, which is decently expensive. But he's still probably the best point per dollar guy that's popping in all the projection models. Elvis Andrus will be very popular in cash games, so be prepared if you fade him. Be prepared for to sweat out those when he gets on base or gets up each time. Yeah. Now, the left-handed bats, I love the left-handed bats for the Tampa Rays here. Corey Dickerson hitting leadoff has just been elite this season. He's priced at way up there, and he's one of these guys you're going to have to make a decision between Nelson Cruz, Michael Conforto, or Corey Dickerson because they're all in the same tier. But Nick Martinez is allowing a 337 WOBA. He's given up 3 home runs in 16 innings. Now, the reason that people sometimes run away from Martinez as far as stacking against him is he only allows a 29.8% hard hit rate, but he's a fly ball pitcher. He's giving up the fly ball at 43.9%, and he's only striking out 10% of left-handed bats. So guys like Logan Morrison, who are power, swing for the fence or strikeout guys, I want those guys in my lineup today. And with the Rays, they're a home run or strikeout team mostly this season. So Corey Dickerson, Logan Morrison, I love those 2 guys. And if I can get them in, I'm getting them in today. Outside of that, I got Kevin Kiermaier, who will be hitting seconds. He's going to get on base and cause havoc. He has a little bit of pop-up side, but mostly you're looking for him to score runs and steal bases. But left-handed bats for Tampa is what I'm looking to target, and right-handed bats for the Rangers.
Yeah, again, I mean, for me, Nick Martinez, I'm fine with right or left. And Andriese, I know you're seeing the WOBA from 2017, but I have him down as pretty much a neutral split guy. If you look at 15, he struggled versus lefties. 16, it was pretty much the same. If you look at his xFIP all the years, it's pretty close. So I wouldn't worry about left-handed bats. I really don't see anything in him that would make me think he'd be a reverse split pitcher either. I think he's just a pretty neutral split guy, so I would attack from either side of the plate.
I can see that. For today's purposes, for me, I'm just looking at those right-hand bats just because that's who's fitting in. But I can see, stacking 1 through 4 in cash games. You're going to run into left-hand, right-hand bats from Texas just because it's a good hitter's park. It's the second highest run total of the game. And the Rangers are projected to score 4.95 runs, so it's a great spot for them. Tampa's projected to score 5.05 runs. It's a great spot for them. So The line's actually flipped since it opened, and that's why I was shocked that Texas is now favored. So keep an eye on that movement. Either way, you don't want anything to do with the pitchers, but lots of hitters in that game. Now for the game of the day. This is the one that I've been waiting to talk to you about. I have no idea what to do in this game. We have the Boston Red Sox and Chris Sale going to the Chicago White Sox to face off against Jose Quintana. Boston is only a minus 160 favorite for a Chris Sale game, which is interesting in itself. The run total is 7.5, which is tied for the lowest on the slate. Obviously, we're dealing with Chris Sale. This is his first start against the team that he played 7 seasons for and was traded from this past offseason. Talk to me about Chris Sale in this spot, especially from a GPP perspective, because I have no idea what I'm going to do with him in cash.
Yeah, I think in GPPs he's going to be very popular. I mean, he always is. There's a couple of cheap pitchers you can pair him with on DraftKings. And me, I don't like the spot much at all. When I'm paying 13.4K for a pitcher on DraftKings, I want to love the spot. I want everything to be there for it. And this White Sox team is going to throw out 9 right-handed batters, and
a DH.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 9 quality right-hand bats.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both American League teams, so I mean the DH is expected, but he kind of threw me there. But Sale.
Well, no, I was just pointing out that it's not like you're getting, because sometimes when people take pictures and they assume, okay, they can get through the lineup and then get to the end and get a little break or flip it around. But the White Sox against left-handed pitching, they're literally the best team in weighted runs created.
Yeah, they're number 1 in the league in that, and they only strike out at 17.2% versus left-hand pitching. But Chris Sale is that level of pitcher where those stats don't mean that much just because he can do whatever he wants if he's on. Still, at his price on DraftKings, I don't have a lot of interest. I'm running, I think, 50 or 100 lineups today in the $70, and I think I might have like 10% Chris Sale. Or I might just completely fade him and say, let's hope they get to him early. And he hasn't looked as sharp in his last few starts. I mean, he still looked great, but he's not as dominant as we saw him over that stretch where it basically looked like he was by far the best pitcher in baseball. So I don't have any interest in the White Sox hitters, really. Actually, no, I do have some interest. They make a nice GPP stack because Sale has, in his career, shown the ability to just blow up. It's usually against the Minnesota Twins, which is an odd thing that I don't think anyone can really explain, but they're cheap. They could get to them, and they're going to be super low owned. And so they don't make a bad, especially if you're going to do like a 4x4, you can do 4 White Sox and then combine them with about any other team you want because they're so priced down. Plus, you're not playing sales, so you're saving money there. As far as the Red Sox, I think they're going to get to Jose Quintana. I mean, they throw out a pretty much all righty lineup themselves, and Quintana's continually not that great versus right-handed bats. And I don't think there's really much else to say. I think most of the Red Sox bats are in play, but they're just really not my favorite plays in the day. And I'm pretty much staying away from Sale. What about you?
Well, this is why I brought up the point earlier about not facing a DH versus facing a DH. Chris Sale is 11,700 on FanDuel. He's 13-4 on DraftKings. He's going to be facing a tough test 1 through 9 as far as capable hitters. You got guys like Robbie Ray and Jeff Samardzija, who we're going to talk about here in a bit, who are going to be facing off against. They'll have a pitcher spot that they can almost count as a guaranteed out each time through, and they're significantly cheaper. Now, the good for the Sale, he's the biggest favorite of the slate. He's minus 155. He's, of course, been elite this season, striking out 28.3% of batters. He's only allowing a 265 WOBA to left-handed bats, a 212 WOBA to right-handed bats. He's only given up 3 home runs in 63.1 innings. Now, the bad is, I don't know, is he going to be so juiced up that he pitches crazy good? Or, to me, I don't know how to take in this narrative of going back to Chicago for the first time, because it's not really a thing in baseball, but this tonight will be a thing.
Yeah,
you cannot get over this.
He hates the White Sox.
He got out of Chicago on a very, very bad situation. There was a deal where he didn't want to wear a certain type of uniform, so he cut up all the uniforms so the rest of his team couldn't wear them. The team found out what he did and suspended him for 6 days. It was a very ugly scene towards the end when they got rid of him. It was kind of known that he didn't get along with management, and they found a good trade partner in the Red Sox, and they shipped him out of town. So he's going to be for sure juiced up. He knows the park. I don't know how to handle that narrative. I don't know how to handle the price. I'm going to be watching this right up to lock to figure out. He's going to be super popular. I'm predicting 30 to 45% in cash games on both sides with that price. I just don't know if it's worth it because it's such a jacked up spot as far as you don't pitch left-handed pitchers against the White Sox this year. You just don't do it.
Yeah, it's worth noting, though, that Sale, he actually strikes out righties at a much higher clip. He's 38% this year so far versus righties, and has a 29% K rate versus lefties. So he's actually striking out more righties. So this, you put the narrative in there. You put the fact that he has actually been tougher on righties this year for strikeouts. He could put up a monster game here. I'm still thinking
the White Sox don't strike out to left-handed pitching. 17% is crazy.
Yeah,
low.
but again, I don't put much weight into that. As much when you're versus an elite guy who can strike anyone out. So that means less to me than it would versus an average even like a Robbie Ray, I'd be more concerned about than a Chris Sale. It's like, I have Chris Sale and Kershaw, especially right now where Kershaw's kind of struggled a bit, as pretty similar types where I don't worry too much about the opponent's strikeout percents.
Yeah, it's the conundrum in cash games today. You either build with Sale and you have to punt a couple of positions, like pure punt, where you're going to be playing a Chris Young, who's going to be hitting fifth for the Red Sox tonight against Quintana. And you're going to have to punt at least one or two other spots just to fit in Sale, or you go with a guy like Robbie Ray or Samardzija, and you can kind of load up on bats and maybe get your Coors exposure or the Conforto, Dickerson type tiers. So it's the conundrum of cash games where you fade them at your own risk. I've faded Clayton Kershaw, I've faded Chris Sale, and I've had success. I've also faded them and got crushed. This is one of the unique spots where I have no idea how he's going to do tonight. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm very excited to see that first inning. He's either going to come out juiced up and strike out the entire side, or the White Sox are going to know him and know his tendencies. And man, it's so fascinating to me that we won't find another spot like this for maybe years, where the top pitcher of the entire league arguably is going into a situation where no one knows the outcome. So I don't know.
I think I'm staying away, but yeah, like you said, I could see him getting crushed, and I could see him striking out 21 batters and breaking the all-time record. So
yeah, he's going to be so juiced up. Of all the pitchers in the league, he's the guy that is very, very fiery and emotional. Him and Max Scherzer are so fun to watch pitch because they get way into it. They're just jacked up. And this is a spot where his emotions are going to be pumped through the roof. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be so fun to watch. But as far as hitters, in cash games, you cannot touch any White Sox. I bet one or two of them hit a home run, Abreu or Melky Cabrera or somebody, but you can't touch them. It's just not smart playing cash games. Red Sox-wise, all the right-handed bats are in play. Mookie Betts hitting leadoff. Quintana has given up 329 WOBA, 6 home runs in 46.1 innings. He's a fly ball pitcher to right-handed bats. He's given up 41% fly ball rate. The interesting thing about Quintana is he has walked 20 batters in 46 innings, which is a 10% walk rate. The Red Sox are a pretty disciplined hitting team, and Betts has, if he gets on base, stolen base potential, even against the lefty. If you get base runners on for a Hanley Ramirez, we'll have RBI spots. And Chris Young, who is going to be, I believe yesterday when he faced the lefty, he was, I think, 75% owned in cash games just because his salary is so cheap. Yeah, he's in cash games. You're going to run into Chris Young like
Yeah.
crazy, and you
Just
either play him and hope that he just does his thing, and you can knock out the 25% that faded him. And if you fade him and he happens to get one of his home runs or just RBI or even at his price, he's only 2,600 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, I believe it's still 3,600. Let me double check that. On DraftKings, he is 3,500. So he actually went down 100 from yesterday. He's going to be super popular in cash games. So Sale and Chris Young are going to be very, very popular in cash games. And Mookie Betts, even on DraftKings, comes at a discount to all those big names. He is, I believe it was only. Let me look him up real fast. Mookie Betts.
He's 4.8 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's 4.5. Yeah, he's really cheap on DraftKings. Way too cheap.
Yeah, that's too cheap on DraftKings for a guy of his skill level who hit a home run yesterday. So, such a fascinating game. This is the one I'll make sure that I've got tuned in, turned on, ready to watch because I'm very, very interested in see how Chris Sale does. So, fade at your own risk. I still don't know where I'm going with it. I've got about 4 hours to figure that out. So, it's going to be a fun day to figure out. Hopefully, when lineups release, there's some punt plays because I want to play Sale. It's going to be fun. So, moving on, we've got. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we should move on because we're running big on time. But yeah, I mean, Chris Young, I mean, he hasn't looked great this year. He's just not hitting the ball. I'm surprised he's that high owned. I mean, I understand people just love him versus lefties, but man,
it's the perception. It's the perception. Chris Young versus lefties.
Yeah, he's definitely way overrated than what he once was anyway. So
it's the perception, and he usually only gets played on Chris Sale days because he fits. For some reason they usually are facing a lefty, and he allows you to pay up for a Sale type pitcher. But moving on, our next game we've got the Houston Astros and Mike Fiers going to Minnesota to take on the Twins and Jose Barrios. The Twins are minus 111 favorites and a run total of 9. I like this game. Tell me what you think about this game.
Yeah, I like the right-hand bats from the Twins. I like Sano a lot.
Love them.
I'm not going to the pitching at all in this game. I mean, I'm a Twins fan, so I'm a big Barrios fan, but this is going to be a really tough spot for him. His strikeout numbers, besides that one start, really haven't been all that great. He's more of a kind of a put-it-in-play, fly ball, soft contact kind of guy that you don't see a lot of. He's a weird pitcher to watch. Like, if you haven't ever watched him pitch, you need to watch him pitch. He's got some nasty stuff.
It's great.
But he's a fun guy to watch. He does remind. I've heard a lot of people say this of Jose Fernandez. So he is one hell of a guy to watch. But this matchup is it's tough for him. But I don't think I want to go to a lot of the bats. I mean, we saw he was able to limit the Indians in his debut, and he's a frustrating guy to play guys versus because even when they're putting the ball in play, they can't get all of it because that ball's got such great late movement on it. So basically, I'm not looking at any of the pitching. I'm looking at right-handed bats for the Twins maybe and Sano or Dozier. Sano finally snapped out of his I strike out every at-bat streak and hit a home run yesterday. But what are you thinking?
I'm definitely not touching any of the pitching. Barrios is a fascinating prospect, and as you were mentioning, his stuff is electric. It's very entertaining to watch. But rule number 1, or 1A this season in cash games is don't take pitchers against the Astros. The Astros are not a team you want to mess with. They've got lots of speed, power, and potential to blow up your pitcher. Even the best spots, you just don't take pitchers against the Astros this season. It's just a thing. Now, hitters, I love Brian Dozier and I love Miguel Sano today. Mike Fiers is only entering the rotation again because of injury. He was dropped from the rotation earlier this season. This year alone, he's allowing a 497 WOBA with 12 home runs in 19.2 innings. 12 home runs in 19.2 innings. That's 5.49 home run per 9 if you stretch that out. That is a mark that you will not see in the majors. That's higher than a Jared Weaver or Bronson Arroyo. That is crazy. And you've got a guy like Miguel Sano who is a power bat that if you're pitching in the zone to Sano, he's going to crush it. He's right up there with Nolan Arenado as my top play at third base and overall in the entire slate. I love Sano.
Yeah.
Fire's fly ball pitcher, 51% fly balls, hard hit rate of 42.2% to right-hand bats. Sano, Dozier, both those guys. I wish they had more right-hand bats that I could trust. But, man, it's such a good spot for a guy with power against Fires.
Yeah, and I agree. One thing that does worry me a little bit is Fires has some of that breaking stuff that Sano struggles with. So there is that little risk. But, yeah, he used to be a better pitcher because he used to have better strikeout stuff. He just can't make bats miss much anymore. Sano is the one guy. I mean, if you've seen his at-bats lately, he doesn't look great. He's swinging at air a lot, but you have to love any time a power righty faces.
Fires is striking out 21.1% of right-handed bats, so it is something to take in consideration because Sano is a high strikeout guy. But if he makes contact in Minnesota, it's a home run tonight.
It should be a homer strikeout probably every bat.
Yeah,
which is a fun sweat.
It's amongst the best spots for cash games. Is you're going to get, if you roster a Dozier and Sano, you're going to get a big event from one of them. I can almost guarantee it. Moving on, we got 4 games left. The Detroit Tigers and Justin Verlander travel to Kansas City to take on the Royals and another first-time pitcher, Eric Skoglund. Detroit is a -120 favorite. Run total is 9. Tell me about your interest in the Tigers or Royals.
I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm not a big Vegas guy, and you just mentioned the line. I just looked at it, and I do not understand that. The Tigers should be like -200 here. This pitcher for the Royals, the lefty, and he's just been awful his whole career versus right-handed pitching. So the Tigers are going to roll out a full right-hand lineup for the most part. Yeah, it should be 9 right-handed bats. I think they're going to crush him, and this guy's going to maybe make it 2 innings, and so it's going to go out to the Royals bullpen, which is pretty terrible outside of Soria and Kelvin at the end of it.
You're not getting them if it's a close game. They're not. Yeah, so this bullpen doesn't scare me at all. I think the Tigers are, even in Kansas City, are going to score a ton of runs. And I also like Justin Verlander quite a bit. I think he's going to go really under-owned in GPPs. I think, a lot of people are going to go to Sale. A lot of people are going to go to Robbie Ray, maybe even the Shark in San Francisco. And I don't think Verlander's going to get a lot of ownership. And he's not looked the great this year, but his stats are definitely, they should be better. Everything I look at from his advanced metrics and stuff, it looks like he's going to be fine, and the strikeouts are going to come. And against this Royals offense that just doesn't scare me from anyone at the plate, especially versus a pitcher like Verlander that can strike out this entire lineup, I think could be in line for a monster game tonight. What are your thoughts? See, when I sat down and did my write-up for my initial research, and they didn't announce who the pitcher was for the Royals, and then it came out that it was this lefty that's making his 2017 debut here in the majors. It's just a spot where Detroit, they put up 10 runs last night. It's going to be there's potential for rain, so you got to watch for that. But if you chase, as we were mentioning just a couple minutes ago, if you chase the Royal starter early and they bring in the bad bullpen, it's just going to be teeing off against that guy. The ballpark is not the greatest for hitters, but it's not terrible. And you're going to get, in cash games, Andrew Romine, who's going to be hitting leadoff, is $3K on DraftKings and $2.6K on FanDuel. He's got dual eligibility on DraftKings.
Yeah.
On FanDuel, he's outfield. He is going to be very, very, very high on cash games and is a very dangerous fade because he gets on base and scores runs for this offense. So, Andrew Romine, fade at your own risk in cash games.
Yeah, and it sucks. I hate spots like this because he's going to be super high owned in GPPs too, and it's one of those spots where especially with second base outfield eligibility, I mean, he's going to be 40% owned probably in the $70 on DraftKings, I bet. And
I don't know at your own risk.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can fade him even with him being 40% owned because he can steal. I mean, it's a great spot for him. It's tough to fade him, especially at $3K where you can put him at second base on DraftKings.
Now, As far as the other hitters, Miggy Cabrera at a loaded first base is always in play. JD Martinez against a lefty. I wish they would just flip him with Victor Martinez, let him hit fourth, because in cash games that would make literally a monster difference. But a lot of cash game sharp players and just general players have been rostering the JD Martinez, Justin Upton play lately. It's been kind of fascinating. The other night, Justin Upton was 50% owned and he was hitting sixth. You don't see that in cash games very often.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are giving a lot of respect to the back or the middle back of that order for the Tigers, and you'll see them in cash games.
Yeah, and I don't worry too much about batting order, and I think it's even overrated in cash games just because you're not going to lose that many at bats. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I mean, at sixth, you start getting down a little bit, but like fifth, the difference between third and fifth is very minimal. Now, the difference between first and eighth is quite a bit, but so I don't worry too much about batting stances. Yeah, I think Upton's a great play. Upton, JD, Miggy, even.
Who do you think hits second today? Because it's been Avila, but they're not going to play him against a lefty.
It's probably going to be Nick.
So do you think it's going to be Matuk?
Ooh, it might be. It's either going to be Matuk or Nicky. Nicky needs to. I mean, I don't understand how Nicky isn't having a better season. He hits the ball hard, and he's just not being able to do anything with it.
Well, let me talk to you about Justin Verlander from a cash game perspective here. It's a matchup against the Royals, and we've been targeting Royals with pitchers all season long. I don't have faith in Justin Verlander tonight. Something just seems off about him. He's just not. I watched him pitch. I've rostered him a couple times. He's walking too many, and he gets himself in trouble and gives up lots of runs. His walks in the last 5 games here, he's had 3 walks, 1 walk, 5 walks, 3 walks, 4 walks, and 2 walks.
Yeah, and a lot of that though is it was Houston, it was in Arizona, it's versus the Indians. I just don't. Those don't concern me at all.
So you're thinking the matchup? It was more matchup based.
Yeah.
See, I guess I'm still burnt from him. I rostered him against Minnesota, and he walked 6 batters, which was like a career high for him, and he only had 4 strikeouts. He just seems like he's trying to get too cute around. He gets a lot of 2-strike counts, and he just wasn't able to put people away. So it's an interesting spot.
Yeah,
he's 9,300 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings he is
10-7.
See, I think that's too much for tonight for cash games. I don't think he's going to be very popular. So
yeah, no, I agree for cash games. I don't think he'll be popular in GPPs, and that makes me just want him even more. And yeah, I agree. His swinging strike numbers are down this year. They've rebounded some. So I mean, there's some concerns there, but I love the spot for him. I love that no one's going to play him. And I think, the one thing I'm scared about is that they're going to be up so much they're not going to let him throw a complete game is my biggest fear right now.
He does go deep in games, though. He's not one. He's a workhorse, so they'll let him out there. And you're only afraid of, he's a fly ball guy, so you're afraid of Moustakas and Sal Perez, really. And that's pretty, the back order is a lot of strikeouts or home run guys. So I could see a Bonifacio or Soler taking him deep, but
yeah,
he's relatively safe. But that price is just too much for cash games for today. So moving on, we've got the Atlanta Braves and Bartolo Colon traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Angels of Anaheim. And did they change who they're pitching? Because I've got down Parker Bridwell as pitching now, and earlier I did not have Parker Bridwell.
Yeah, I always.
Who do you have down for the?
I have Parker Bridwell. That's the only one I ever saw. I never looked early.
Well, I had Alex Mayer, so.
Yeah, I think he's not back yet.
He's still injured.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Parker Bridwell, who is a righty, who I know nothing about, so I'm going to defer to you on that. But the Angels are minus 130 favorites against Bartolo Colon. Run total is 8.5. Talk to me about Braves and Angels here.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about Parker Bridwell, and he's got a confusing game log, too, because his last start at AAA, he actually only threw 20 pitches. It actually came out of the bullpen. He didn't start. But the start before that, he threw 93, so I don't know how many pitches he's even going to be in there for.
He's not even available on FanDuel.
Yeah. So I'm not talking about pitching. I'm just thinking about if we should target him or not. And my answer is I don't really know. I mean, you don't mind the lefties, but on a 14-game slate, you don't really want to go to in LA. Their bullpen's pretty decent, in my opinion. They did use a lot of it yesterday, so if he can only pitch 3-4 innings, you're going to see the crappy long relief guys probably come in. So, I mean, there is some upside in there, but for me, I'm kind of passing on the Braves bats. And Cologne, you can pitch, you can play any hitters versus him chasing the home runs that he loves to give up. He doesn't allow steals. He's great at holding runners, so I don't really love Mabe. I mean, this game's pretty much a pass for me. I don't know what you're thinking.
Not touching any of the pitching, and there is one play that I'm really, really, really looking into, and he's going to be super popular on FanDuel because he allows you to pay up for sale. Luis Valbuena is hitting cleanup, and he is 2.2K.
Yeah, that's dirty. I love me some Luis too.
Left-handed home run hitters against Cologne are a thing. You want to target left-handed home run hitters. So Cole Calhoun is only 2,900 on FanDuel. He's also going to be popular. But Luis Valbuena is near the dead minimum against Cologne. He's going to show up in cash games left and right. I love Nolan Arenado. I love Miguel Sano, but I may go down to Valbuena because look at these numbers for Cologne. 356 WOBA with 5 home runs in 26.2 innings. Hard hit rate, 37%. Fly ball rate, 46%. And he only strikes out 15.7% of left-handed bats. Valbuena's got a 340 WOBA and a 209 ISO against right-handed pitching as it is. This is a home run spot for Valbuena, who hit one yesterday off to Herod. I don't know outside of Valbuena and Calhoun, because they don't have Trout, so they won't have line of protection for Anderson Simmons. It's not a steal upside because Cologne's good at holding runners. But Valbuena is going to be very, very tough to pass up, and you're going to see him in cash games a lot. So if he hits a home run, he's going to boom or bust, win or lose for a lot of people tonight at that price.
Yeah, I'm looking this up quick. I wonder what he is. Because my one concern with him is I believe he's a better power pitch hitter. So I'm kind of looking up his numbers versus
the middling fastball.
Yeah, and he hasn't had many at bats this year. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean it's not good. His ISO, I mean, he hits is mid-90s fastballs from what I'm seeing is his best, and the low stuff he kind of does struggle with, so that does bring me some concerns.
But 2.2K, one swing of the bat, left-handed bats against Cologne.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it doesn't. I like, it's definitely concerning, and I kind of had that in my head that he did struggle. It was more, he's the kind of guy you want versus someone that throws 95. So that does worry me. I can see it being a frustrating day where you just get a strikeout and a couple of pop-ups.
Even at 2.2K, though, that's not going to lose you games in cash. So that's why he's very interesting, and you'll see a lot of them. But that's about it from that game. 2 games left, 2 interesting pitching spots here on the West Coast. First, we got Chicago Cubs with Eddie Butler traveling to San Diego to take on the Padres, and Dinelson Lamet. The Cubs are minus 130 favorites. The run total is 8.5. And I will tell you this, Lamet has huge buzz as the SP2 on DraftKings today in cash games. He is the most talked about and going to be very highly owned SP2 pitcher on DraftKings. Tell me what you think of Dinelson Lamet.
I mean, yeah, he looked impressed with his last start. You love the stuff. You love the K upside. The Cubs have been terrible versus right-hand pitchers that can strike guys out. But at the same point, if he's going to be popular, I want nothing to do with him because I think it's a very high-risk spot for him.
Well, what do you make of the Cubs being minus 130 favorites here?
I think that makes sense. I think Eddie Butler's my favorite SP2, cheap SP2 anyway.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting 5-6 innings out of him, limiting the damage. He can get 5-6 Ks, and at 5,400 on DraftKings, I like it a lot.
Well, let me tell you, cash game wise, you're going to be facing Lamet on DraftKings for a lot of your matchups. He is a dog, and I have a golden rule: don't take pitchers that are underdogs. But here's the good for him: he's a super prospect. In his first start, he pitched at New York against the Mets, and he crushed. Quite frankly, he struck out 8. He only allowed 3 hits and 1 earned run, and he got yanked after 5 innings. They're going to protect him. So if he goes 5 innings, and if he can limit the damage, and let's say he has 6 strikeouts, maybe 1 or 2 earned runs, and they pull him after 5 innings or 6 innings, and he's only 6K on FanDuel and 6.1K on DraftKings, that's going to be a cash game play. I could see some people even leaning there for cash games for FanDuel, not even SP2, but SP1, just because you can load up and hope that he makes it that 6 innings and limits damage, because he's got K upside. His stuff was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I watched him pitch. His stuff looked great. I've also seen some of the stuff from the minors, and I think he's quite a bit overrated right now. I'll have 0% of him. I'm either running 50, 100, or 150 lineups on DraftKings, depending on how much time I have. And I will have 0 of them, and I hope the field plays a ton of them. I mean, especially if you look at his AAA game log, he has struggled in a lot of games at AAA. I mean, he had either strikes everyone out or gets hit pretty hard. And this Cubs team does strike out a lot, but they're also an amazing lineup that's really starting to get better and better, especially as the weather heats up. And I like them in this spot, not to play, but just to get after him and knock him out after 4 or 5 innings and have him have a 5-point DraftKings game is what I'm thinking.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Lamet is on the SP2 range, and you will see him in cash games, so be prepared to face that. Eddie Butler is not someone that has been on my radar and is not getting a lot of buzz in the cash game circles, just because even though it's against the Padres, there's not a lot of strikeout upside, I believe, is the knock on him. Is that correct?
I mean,
he's a ground ball pitcher, right?
Yeah, he can limit damage, but he does have pitches that I don't mind versus right-hand. He's got a nice if he has that 2-seamer working, that can be a nice finishing pitch. He struggled his last 2 starts, but versus the Cardinals, which is another right-hand heavy lineup, he had the 2-seamer working. He picked up, I believe, 6 strikeouts in 5-6 innings. And at 5,400, that's all I want. And I think he's in line for the win because, like I said, I think the Cubs are going to get after Lamet. And he's so cheap that he lets me do whatever I want and pitch whoever I want and hit whoever I want with him, that I'm with him, and I'm hoping he gets me 15 to 20 DraftKings points tonight.
Well, he is the favorite, so he's got that going for him. It is a pitcher's park. The one hitter that you'll see in this game, in cash games, Cubs aren't going to be popular, and Padres, for the most part, aren't going to be popular, but Ryan Schimpf will be popular against Butler just because he's got the platoon advantage. He's hitting cleanup. He fits second base on FanDuel and DraftKings. You won't see him at all because he's third base. But on FanDuel, he fits second base. And the numbers against Butler has a hard hit rate of 38.9% to left-hand bats. And he's only striking out 16% of left-hand bats. And if you're not striking out Schimpf, that's a spot you want to take him because he's a swing for the fences, home run, strikeout guy. So I could see you're going to run into Ryan Schimpf a few times in cash games.
Yeah, I think just checking one thing quick here. Yeah, Schimpf struggles mightily versus ground ball pitchers his entire career, and that 2-seamer is a pitch I don't believe he hits well, and so I don't like Schimpf at all today. I think
fair enough. I don't see you won't see him on DraftKings because he's third base only, but on FanDuel he is a cheap spot to get second base in.
Yeah, I mean he's been terrible his whole career versus ground ball pitchers, so I would say a complete X him out, complete fade for me.
All right, our last game of the night, Washington Nationals and Gio Gonzalez traveling to San Francisco to take on the Giants and Jeff Samardzija. The Giants are minus 120 favorites, a run total of 7.5. And we have possibly some news in this game. There was a huge brawl yesterday. And this is slate-changing news for me. I hope Bryce Harper gets suspended before lock, because that really makes me interested in Jeff Samardzija. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll hear before lock. I'm guessing that'll be tomorrow. I think if it was going to happen, it would have came out already. So I would assume that Harper will be in the lineup. And, Samardzija's looked great. Those K numbers are legit. If you watch him pitch, he's got that slider and two-seamer working hard against left-hand bats. We always used to love to target him in the last year or two with left-hand bats, but he's really kicked up that K numbers with him. And yeah, that slider that he throws inside against lefties, and then he gets that two-seamer working away. He looks tough. I mean, I wish he was cheaper. I wish DraftKings would have priced him down for the matchup with the Nationals. I would be more interested. I mean, he's at a price point right now where I don't have a ton of interest, just because this national lineup is tough. But I can see him having a big game again. We've seen lately that he's just been killing it. I don't have any interest in any hitters in this game at all, and I'm not going to pitch Gio. So it's basically saying that Shark could have a big game, but I don't have a lot of interest, and that's it for me.
Samardzija is going to be popular in cash, and I really like him. I have him ranked in my top 3 for pitching today.
I would think he'd be.
Let me tell you the scoop on him here. He's 8,900 on FanDuel. He's 8,600 on DraftKings. He has a 1-6 win-loss record on the season, which is fascinating because he has been borderline elite. He's got 3.82 Sierra on the season, and he's striking out 22% of hitters. Now, at home, he's been great as far as limiting damage. He's a fly ball pitcher who, in this park, it's tough. Traditionally struggled against left-handed bats. The Nationals have the 4th lowest projected team total of 3.88 runs, and that's why I was saying I hope that Harper is suspended prior to lock and he doesn't appeal, and meaning he sits out this game, because if he's out, that bumps Samardzija up to my SP2 as far as overall behind Sale for projections. He's got a quality start in 5 of his last 6 starts. He's got 8+ strikeouts in his last 5 starts. 8+ strikeouts.
Yeah, no, it's...
So even if he gives up a run or two, I'm not afraid. The Nationals lineup, they strike out only 19% of the time to right-hand bats, so it's not like a great spot. And there's an issue where he may be involved in some funny business of beanball revenge, and they're nothing worse than getting your starting pitcher tossed because he throws at a batter in retaliation. But he's only 8,900 on FanDuel, and he fits a lot of builds over there. On DraftKings, he's only 8,600, and he allows you, if you go mid-tier, to fit in a lot of builds over there. So I think he's going to be pretty popular in cash games.
Yeah, I'm a big Samardzija fan. This spot doesn't grade out that great for me. I mean, you obviously always love him at home. You love anyone in San Francisco, and I mean, I've watched him pitch his last starts, and he has improved so much from last year. I mean, that two-seamer has a lot of bite. That slider is real nice. And
because here's the thing, if he gets you to the 20+ range on DraftKings and the 35+ range on FanDuel for fantasy points,
yeah, I don't want
point per dollar.
Not for me in GPPs at 8.6. I want 30 out of them, and I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah. For cash games, though, that's perfect, because even if you fade Sale and you roster Samardzija, you're hoping that point per dollar, he just keeps pace with them. And if he does that, you win. I
could see that argument where reverse Sale, but I think there's a lot of risk here. I mean, I think this Nationals lineup can get to anybody. I mean, you like that it's righty heavy versus him and everything, and I mean, I see everything here, but I think there's more risk than maybe people are saying, or at least thinking. I didn't think he'd be a popular cash game guy. I thought he'd be kind of...
Let me ask you this, because he's right around the same price range as a Severino. He's below a Verlander, and he's above a Kenta Maeda and Jose Barrios.
Yeah, I mean, I love him way more than all those guys, that's for sure.
And I think that's the spot where
you do make sense there. That everyone around his price, he is leaps and bounds above everyone else in that price range.
So he's up there. Keep an eye on the news with Bryce Harper, but he's definitely up there with the. I still think Chris Sale is the top tier, but then you got Robbie Ray and Jeff Samardzija and Luis Severino as that second tier. So in cash games, you're going to see Samardzija. It's especially game log chasers. They're really going to like what they see when they open that up. So keep in mind that Bryce Harper news, but that's pretty much the wrap on that. Big slate. Went a little long here, but lots to cover, lots of good spots. This is one of the more fascinating slates of the entire season. For me, it's a volume 3 because there's a lot that could happen. Since we've been on the air here, there's a lot of upgraded risk in the Chicago White Sox game. So if you're rostering Chris Sale, now you're going to have to factor in weather. Yeah, that's. I'm trying to look up the exact percentage right now. There's a 30% chance of rain. So something to factor in. Just another thing. 25% delay risk is what I'm reading from the weather.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. I want people to play them. So
it's never easy.
I hope the weather clears so more people play them because I'm willing to take that risk tonight and fade them. So,
well, let's wrap up our podcast here. Thanks if you stuck around to the end. You want to explain our hitter draft?
Yeah, so we're gonna have a contest every day. We're gonna do a snake draft of 3 hitters each. And so the host will get the first pick, and then I'll get picks 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, etc. We are going to eliminate Coors, so no Coors bats allowed, just to make it more fun. So you're on the clock, I guess. So you got the first pick.
No Coors. My first spot I'm looking at is I can't get away from Miguel Sano. I just love this spot for the home run upside. I think Fires is going to try to challenge him in the zone, and I think he's going deep. So my top hitter of the day outside of Coors is Miguel Sano.
And by the way, it is DraftKings scoring. I mean, we know that, but the listeners didn't know. I forgot to mention that. My first pick is going to be Logan Morrison. And
I like Morrison against Nick Martinez.
And then I'm going to go Justin Smoke.
Okay. My second pick here, I will stick with that same Texas game. I really like Corey Dickerson. I've been on him since slate opened, hitting leadoff. He's just been a guy he gets on base, his power upside. I love Corey Dickerson this year. So I've got Sano, Dickerson, and for my final pick, no Coors bats. I'm going back to the well with Kendrys Morales. I've just loved his consistency lately. He's getting the platoon advantage in Toronto against Wojciechowski. I like Kendrys Morales.
And I'll take JD Martinez as I think pretty obvious last pick here to close it out. So it'll be Sano, Dickerson, Morales versus Logan Morrison, Justin Smoke, JD Martinez. And if one of our guys is in the lineup, we'll just have to tweet at each other to pick a replacement of the remaining guys, I guess. But I don't.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a wrap on our first episode. You got anything else to say, Brett?
No, I appreciate everybody sticking with us. Promise it won't be this long every day, but this is just such a fascinating, huge slate and so much to cover today. 14 games with such unique spots that I believe it warranted this discussion. I'm very excited for the slate tonight.
Yeah, I think we're going for 40 minutes, so we almost doubled it. So, yeah, in the future, the podcast will be a lot shorter, and especially as we get more used to doing this and a little more talented and whatnot, we'll get more concise in our analysis. But I think it's worth the listen. We'll see what the viewers or the listeners think.
Well, for Bluff and myself, thank you for tuning in to On the RotoRadar podcast. We will, as always, be ready for the slate in a couple hours. Good night and good skill.
Did you like today's show? Did you find this information to be helpful? Give us a shout out on any social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Of course, don't forget to use the hashtag RotoRadarMLB in your post. Every time you use that hashtag, you'll get a ticket to our $20,000 raffle in July. You heard that right. $20,000. We appreciate every single one of you for being RotoRadar members. On the RotoRadar will be available for members only Monday to Friday for the remainder of the MLB season. As always, good night and good skill. For more information on our raffles, head over to our website, www.rotoradar.net.